anticipated and sought to amend the structures to ensure that certain aspects that hadn't been anticipated, be it this pandemic, be it perhaps the whole issue around data, around the fourth industrial estate, must be accommodated and must be dealt with through amendments, because again, the strength of our constitution is in the ability of us, of Wanjiku, to amend it to reflect its new realities. Mr. Speaker, I'm a little confused, Madam Speaker, I'm sorry. I'm a little confused though by the committee's recommendation to implement and to pass this amendment bill, but at the same time, talk of the unconstitutionality of a constitutional amendment. How on earth can any constitutional amendment that has been given an approach, that has been given a mechanism for amendment, be termed as unconstitutional? Are we then saying, what contradiction is it then to say, even though our constitution has anticipated us being able to amend our constitution and has given us blow-by-blow mechanism for doing so and different approaches to do so, again we go back and say it's unconstitutional? I'm a bit confused. I'm not a lawyer, but I see contradiction in the committee's assertion that certain provisions are unconstitutional. How you can talk of the content, perhaps, not being agreeable to you, but the process, I don't understand how a process that is in law can be termed unconstitutional and then in the same breath being asked to pass it because it's a good one. I know senior counsel is a lawyer of very great standing and he must know why he's saying that, but from where I sit, it looks like a confusion and a speech from both mouths, where a recommendation is to pass the bill, but that unconstitutionality of a constitutional amendment is what we're being told it is. Madam Speaker, as I said, how can it be wrong to expand the parameters of certain provisions in our constitution that hasn't worked well for us in the last 10 years, to tweak it, to make it better, to accommodate, and to include, be termed as something that is not constitutional or be termed as below optimal? Madam Speaker, as I said, the 70 constituencies, if we need to revisit, does not have to be revisited within a constitutional amendment bill. It has been said again, the work of delimitation of boundaries and allocation of constituencies is a constitutional mandate of the IEBC. So why not leave that to the IEBC and pass the bill? Because again, as a draft bill, unless we take it back to Wanjiku for her own endorsement, I don't see how then at this level we decide to amend. Because if we were going through Article 256, for instance, and it's a parliamentary process, we are mandated to do that. But Wanjiku chose a direct approach. Wanjiku chose an approach where she had control over the outcome of the process. And taking that away from her is to say, or to insinuate, that this constitution did not know what it was doing when it gave us two different approaches. One where we as parliamentarians can influence and can change and can take control of, and another where Wanjiku can exercise her power directly and do as she pleases. Madam Speaker, it's arrogant for us to think that there's nothing we cannot do. Our role is clear, our role is limited to what has been mandated to us. And it cannot be that we do as we please. Madam Speaker, just as I conclude, because I don't even want to go on too much, I would like to just allude to Article 203, Madam Speaker, because that article...
Senator, there is a point of order from Senator Wambua Kio.
Madam Speaker, I really hate to do this, but just allow me to raise this issue. My friend Senator Abshiro is confusing me. On the one hand, she's saying that if the provisions in terms of the constitutional roles are assigned to IEBC are unconstitutional, then why can't we just remove them and then pass this constitution? On the other hand, she's saying, no, you can't do anything. You can't change this. You can't amend this bill. So I'm looking for clarity as to what our position is on the matter of the allocation of constituencies to counties. On that issue, Madam Speaker, I would want clarity because I'm trying to follow. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, the clarity is as follows. Madam Speaker, what I was trying to say is that given delimitation is the mandate of IBC, but that having been said, Wanjiku, Cherop, Nduku have a right to make proposals as to what they would like. Unless you have an issue with the proposals as given to the proponents, then it is something that at the apex, at the sovereignty of Wanjiku, she has a right to propose anything under the sun, including what is mandated for us in our constitution, including what's mandated for IBC or even for us as senators. So that is my clarification. But that having been said, let me just move quickly to the issue of the last year, the revenue. On 17th of September, Madam Speaker, the third basis for revenue allocation among counties was adopted by the Senate pursuant to Article 217(1) of the Constitution. The Division of Revenue Bill 2021, which is currently before Parliament, was drafted into account to account for the third basis for revenue sharing. And the committee has observed that amendment to Article 203 did not pronounce itself on the fate of the third basis of the revenue sharing, which was developed on the basis of Article 203 as presently rendered in the Constitution. As a result, if the bill is passed while the third basis for revenue sharing among the counties remains in place, there will be two conflicting constitutional provisions on revenue sharing. But Madam Speaker, going on with the findings of this, what has been emphasized, Madam Speaker, and the observation on the Constitution provides that in every 5 years, the Senate shall by resolution determine the basis for allocation among the counties. So I don't see how that is a contradiction, because for the next 5 years, what we agreed in September 2020 will hold. And at the end of that 5 years, the committee, the Senate under Article 217(1) will determine a new basis. So again, I wish to bring this attention to of the House and of the country that it is not correct for the committee to confuse us on this basis, because at the end of the 5 years, we have already a basis in place that will run to the end of the 5 years, at which time this issue under the Constitution of Kenya 2010, Article 217 will be revisited with new realities and a new context and dealt with conclusively as was done in 2020. Again, on that account, I'd like to say I support. Madam Speaker, I know my time is running out and I have quite a few other things to say, but that having been said, I would like to laud the committee for a good, for having gone through this with a toothpick. And I would like to say that the fact that the Bill of Rights wasn't touched is an indication of the fact that the rights and responsibilities of Kenyans were preserved, and only structural and other provisions that are easily amended and based on the provisions and based on the proposals of the Kenyans were included in this. And on that basis, Madam Speaker, I would like to laud the team for not tinkering at all with the Bill of Rights, which has been lauded as one of the best and most dynamic in the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Madam Speaker, with those few remarks and with the fact that I know, again, I'd like to mention one last thing, Madam Speaker, as I finish. Numbers have been thrown around of population on different counties and the corresponding number of constituencies that were given. That is presuming and assuming that all factors were remaining constant, that when Kwale got 3 more or 4 more, they had exact same numbers to begin with. So again, we cannot say that is the reason, because Kwale could have had much less and could have been given much fewer constituencies in the past. Madam Speaker, could you give me a few more minutes? I know you...
Yes, you have attracted a point of order from Senator Mogeni, so I'll give him 1 second because you are winding up.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I just wanted, if the Senator can allow me to just inform her, she's creating the
Do you want
impression...
the information?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the good senator is creating the impression that we are misleading the House or misinforming the House. But what we have done is just to highlight what is in Constitutional of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020. Madam Speaker, on the issue of revenue, what we have highlighted to the House is the implication of the amendment that introduces Article 203, sub-article N, and which has introduced a per capita policy in sharing of revenue. And if you take into account the report that was given to us by the Parliamentary Budget Office, then the account is that we lose money, 7 of them, a total of 8.2 billion. So what we have given to the House, Madam Speaker, is a direct implication on what will happen to the sharing of revenue among the 47 counties once the proposed Article 203N is implemented. We have not tried to in any way mislead the House, but just given the House the facts as they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair of the committee. I'll give you 1 minute. You don't have to, you can digest that information. You don't have to respond.
It's okay, Madam Speaker. I have digested, because everything that has been given by my good friend and chair is actually here, and I've read and reread them. That having been said, again, I don't know how the chair would know in the next 5 years after this, and with the same criteria being used, he will know the counties that will lose. I don't see from where I sit, because if we apply the criteria and as expanded, we will ensure, and I'm sure this House will ensure. But that having said, thank you very much. So as I conclude, Madam Speaker, I thank the proponents for ensuring that certain aspects that hadn't worked in the Constitution of Kenya 2010, especially as regards marginalized communities, as regards women of this country, as you know, the 2/3 gender rule did not see light of day in our Constitution, is being dealt with. And I thank the people of Kenya for ensuring that our Constitution is flexible enough to continually adapt to the changes we see in our country. I thank you, and I support.
Thank you, Senator. Online, we have had Mary Senator waiting for a while. Senator Mary Senator. Senator Mary Senator. Are you still on? Yes, Senator Mary Senator, we are not hearing you. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for also giving me a chance to add my voice on this very, very important constitutional bill. Madam Speaker, before I go to the bill itself, I just wish to note a few things here. Madam Speaker, as a country, we are at the middle of a pandemic. We are in an economic crisis, Madam Speaker, and I thought COVID-19 is an issue that first we need to be discussing at the moment. But Madam Speaker, you know, a constitutional amendment is very, very important, and therefore it is a very important moment for us to ask our He said that bill, and I am very, very particular in, you'll allow me to read also a few articles. I want to go to the amendment, Madam Speaker. I know 94 senators. I know the amendment is talking of 94 senators who are going to be elected to the
Mary Senator, we are losing you again.
Account fund.
Mary Senator, we
Madam.
are not. Are you able to come back in the afternoon? Maybe you'll be in a better place.
Let me try to correct my internet.
Now or afternoon? Are you okay now?
In the afternoon, possibly.
Yes, let's allow you to come back in the afternoon. You have only used 5 minutes, so you have 15. Senator Langat missed 5 minutes. So before I give to Senator Kindiki, I know you are the next one. We want to clear the backlog of people who got messed up in the system. And we have 5 minutes for Senator Langat, then Senator Kindiki.
Yes.
Oh, Senator Kindiki on a point of order.
Madam Speaker, this is a very important bill. This House passed a motion that each senator should speak for 20 minutes. That decision has not been rescinded to my information. So, Madam Speaker, I beg that you allow us to debate. I cannot say what I want to say in 5 minutes.
No, it's me. It's me who was.
So, because I heard you saying Senator Langat 5 minutes, Senator Kindiki 5 minutes. In any case, Madam Speaker, I was actually next.
No. Senator, if you are patient, you'll understand what I've said. Can I repeat what I said? Last week, you were not here.
Yes.
We had Senator Langat for 15 minutes and we lost him like we have lost.
But I'm next, Madam Speaker. I can speak after I finish.
Senator Kindiki, you know the rules very well.
Okay.
We normally allow the people who have had balances to finish first. And we had 2 people with the backlog yesterday. And today we already have started the backlog with Senator Mary Senator. So when we come back in the afternoon, we will allow her to come in. Senator Langat dropped off. After 15 minutes, and we will give him his right of 5 minutes. But everybody has a right to 20 minutes. That we passed at the beginning of this debate. So there is nobody who is going to lose their time. Senator. You are standing. I don't see any intervention button here. Yeah, Senator Lenturi.
I have keenly heard you. Probably I'm seeking your indulgence so that at least we are able to manage our time as well. Considering that you've seen the members that have earned imbalances are the ones that will have the first shot opportunity to speak and exhaust their time. Could you kindly be able to guide us further so that those that have not had an opportunity to speak to this bill, like Linturi, Kika, Kinyua, and others, probably we can excuse ourselves and then get back here in an hour or so when we are sure, at least when we come, we will have an opportunity, other than sit here up to around 1 o'clock, and we don't find time, and probably we will be doing something else that is still beneficial to the country.
Senator Nderitu, Kenya.
Madam Speaker, I have heard my colleague, Senator Linturi. He's saying that you guide us at what time we are going to speak. But, Madam Speaker, we are paid to sit in this house.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Kinyua. I think you have answered your own colleague. That is how we are in this house. But always, whenever you have a balance of your time, the priority is yours. Because the house rises when you're on the floor, we must take care of you. Thank you, Senator Langat. 5 minutes. Senator Keika, you also have a point of order?
Yeah, a very quick one, Madam Speaker. I also would wish to understand, and I'm not arguing, Madam Speaker, but I'm hearing what you're saying as far as if there was a balance of time, then the person gets to finish it before we move on to the fresh ones, so to speak. But shouldn't that have happened at 9 o'clock? We've had other speakers before him. If he was here at that time, at 10 o'clock rather, then he should have been the first person to speak. I don't understand how it applies now and not then. I'm just trying to understand.
Senator Keika, if you came at 9 o'clock, you may have realized that the first person to speak was not Senator Shionga, who had the balance. So it's not always that you must demand that the person who has a balance must be here at 9. At 9 o'clock, we had Senator, there's a senator who spoke before Shionga. Then Shionga had a balance and she came in. I was also watching what was going on. That was Senator Kibiru. So if you were here at 9, you must have realized that we took Kibiru because from here, if somebody has a balance, you don't demand that that person arrives at that time. But we must respect the fact that the people who are here must be given a chance. But I think Senator Kinyua has put it right. We are all supposed to be here so that we take our opportunities when the time comes. Senator Langat?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity, at least to complete what actually I was talking about last week. Saying that we are actually, our constitution is a very important document, Madam Speaker, that guides development, framework, ethos of a country, and more so, it's also an instrument for good governance. And therefore, any amendment that is brought to it must be very important. My expectation to this particular instrument is that it should have been presented in a very utilitarian manner, whereby I expected it to be designed in a very useful and pragmatic way. But in contrary, Madam Speaker, it doesn't meet all those standards. First, I want to begin with what people have not touched mostly with, that is the office of the Prime Minister. Has a lot of protection, unity, and more so, it should not be too open to abuse. But you realize that this office is under the mercies of one person, the President. This particular office, Madam Speaker, is not reliable. It is too open to abuse, because if the President gets into a handshake with a friend somewhere, it will be easy to undermine this office and even get rid of, unlike even the office of the Deputy President currently. So I want to say that my recommendation here is that the impeachment or removal of this particular person in this office, the Prime Minister and the two deputies, should have been brought to the Senate, a house of reason, so that this particular house may exercise justice and fairness to that particular very important office. I'm not also convinced, Madam Speaker, on matters inclusivity. I don't understand how all the 42 plus tribes in this country have been captured in the executive position and all that. So I'm not convinced, and I want to say that that was just a sweetener that was created to convince people that the post-election violence always come as a result of lack of inclusivity. Post-election has been there because of unfairness on matters, maybe those who have been defeated are not accepting defeat. And that is what has been bringing a lot of issues. And that is the area that should have been addressed, Madam Speaker. I'm also not convinced on the creation of the ombudsperson in the judiciary. This, to me, is a retrogressive action. This country has come a long way, especially when this issue was actually addressed seriously by the 2010 Constitution. So to me, I've read and I have found that the Ombudsman Office and the Judiciary Service Commission overlapped in most of their functions. And I want to say that the overlap actually creates a laguna and a conflict in the same office. So my recommendation was that this particular bill should have actually strengthened the judiciary, the Judicial Service Commission. And the creation of actually, I'm also concerned with so many creation of other offices that are actually very burdensome to the taxpayers. The office of the Prime Minister and the two deputies, the office of the Ombudsman, the creation of 70 constituencies is a greater burden to the taxpayers, Madam Speaker. I would have wished that another robust bill and amendment be brought that will actually relieve the taxpayers.
Time up. Senator Kindiki Gidure.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, these proposals help us to reflect about our country, where we've come from and where we are going. And at the outset, Madam Speaker, I want to say that if you ask around this country what is so fundamentally life-changing in this bill, so that we must pass it by all means possible before the next election in the midst of a pandemic. If you ask that question around this country, you will get blank stares. I dare say, Madam Speaker, I dare say, nobody will tell you why BBI is so urgent, including its top proponents. Honorable Speaker, our Constitution will endure if every citizen is determined to exercise his or her duty set out in Article 3.1 to defend the Constitution. And therefore, I stand here today in defense of our Constitution as a patriotic Kenyan. Madam Speaker, it appears to me, and this is my opinion, that the real intent of these proposals is to expand the positions of power at the expense of citizens and to negotiate post-regime political deals. I respectfully submit that the attempt to water down one of the best constitutions in the world is not only illegal, but it's also null and void. Madam Speaker, it is my strong view that this is neither a parliamentary initiative nor is it a popular initiative, because those are the only two approaches by which a constitutional amendment can be initiated. It is neither of them. Instead, it is a legal hermaphrodite unknown to our Constitution, having been initiated by the executive with the unfortunate support of the opposition, and the people were roped in at the very end in a desperate attempt to sanitize an illegal process. Honorable Speaker, this bill aims at removing what the executive considers as the inconveniences of the 2010 Constitution on the limits of the powers of the executive. The implementation of these proposals, Honorable Speaker, will lead to higher taxes to cater for a larger parliament and a larger executive. The potential of our parliament, dear Kenyans, is going to be 640 members of the National Assembly and Senate, theoretically. This bill surprisingly is silent on how to tame the fundamental problem of a high public wage bill in our country. Honorable Speaker, how will I support a bill that interferes with the independence of the judiciary by introducing an ombudsman nominated by the executive, vetted by parliament, to spy on judges, intimidate judges, harass judges, and draw back on the independence of the judicial arm of the state? Madam Speaker, the Judicial Service Commission must always remain with a majority of commissioners coming from the judiciary, not from other arms of government, if we have to retain the independence of the judiciary. Madam Speaker, my conscience will not allow me to support a bill that claws back on the democratization of the police by undermining police reforms that were aimed at transforming our police from a force to a service. Madam Speaker, I cannot countenance an amendment of this Constitution to neutralize the powers of the National Police Service Commission and concentrate those powers on the person of the Inspector General of Police. Honorable Speaker, how does a right-thinking Kenyan lawyer of my stature support a constitutional amendment that removes the rightful role of trade unions, Parliament through the Parliamentary Service Commission, and the civil servants through Public Service Commission, their right to nominate members or commissioners of the Salaries and Remunerations Commission? Madam Speaker, there is zero mention or no attempt to deal with the question of the public debt, which is crippling this country, Madam Speaker. This country is on the verge of being wound up, and nobody is talking about it. Instead, we are talking about Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister, and more members of Parliament. Madam Speaker, I have had people defend the 70% of GDP debt burden in this country as sustainable. It is not. I have had some cavalier mention of the debt burden in Japan, which is 250%, and Singapore at 131%, and the United States of America at 106% as examples why 70% of Kenya's debt is sustainable. Nothing can be further from the truth than that. Take the example of Japan, Honorable Speaker. Japan, 92% of the debt is domestic, is not foreign. Much of Kenyan debt is foreign. Japan, most of the debt is owed to the Bank of Japan, which is the equivalent of the Central Bank of Kenya, in form of government bonds. And the interest rates are almost zero. The interest rates of our loans, which are mainly commercial, foreign loans, 7%, 9%. Japan, Madam Speaker, is a manufacturing giant, and therefore that debt is cushioned by a huge export portfolio. One may want to ask, what does Kenya export? Nothing, Madam Speaker. Japan's debt is also cushioned by the fact that also Japan is the largest creditor on earth, with overseas assets and foreign currency to the tune of 3 trillion US dollars. What does Kenya own abroad? Nothing, Madam Speaker. This country is staring at bankruptcy. And very soon will be humiliated the way Sri Lanka has been humiliated to cede its port to the Chinese. The way Zambia, our brothers down south, are being humiliated to release the international airport, the Kenneth Kaunda International Airport, and their equivalent of Kenya Power to the Chinese because of the greed for loans. Madam Speaker, that is what this BBI should have been about. Madam Speaker, I will not support this bill because, among other things, Madam Speaker, the gains, which are few in this bill, can be realized without touching even a single article of the Constitution. I'll give you an example. Implementing just one article, which we have refused to implement, Article 10, will speak to the entire of this eclectic mumbo-jumbo of legal amendments that we do not require. Madam Speaker, allow me to read Article 10, which speaks to the national values and principles of governance of our country, which binds every organ of state and every arm of government whenever it is interpreting the Constitution, applying the Constitution, or even implementing public policy decisions. What values should guide public institutions? Patriotism, national unity, devolution of power, rule of law, democracy, public participation, human dignity, equity, social justice, inclusiveness, equality, human rights, non-discrimination, and the protection of the marginalized. Good governance, integrity, transparency and accountability, and sustainable development. That's all we need to implement. Madam Speaker, with respect to the 70 proposed new constituencies, I submit as follows. Number one, this is an usurpation, an illegal usurpation of the powers of the IBC, which cannot be countenanced unless there is an amendment to the Constitution further to what we have at the moment. Madam Speaker, secondly, this list in Schedule 2 is dividing Kenya and actually is a contradiction to the stated ideals of inclusivity in the BBI. 28 counties will get new constituencies, 19 counties will be left on their own. What message are we talking? And yet, Madam Speaker, and I want to go on record that I have no objection to more constituencies in any part of this country. But for heaven's sake, Nairobi now has 18 members of parliament. You want to add 12 others. There will be 30 members of parliament in Nairobi. Kiambu has 12. You add 6, there will be 18. Within the two counties of Nairobi and Kiambu, you have 50 members of the National Assembly, which is the size of some parliaments in some countries, the size of Kenya. Yet, Madam Speaker, if that was the intention, then why is Kitui not on the list? Why is Marsabit not on the list? Why is Tharaka-Nithi not on the list? Why is Wajir not on the list?
Senator, there is a point of order from Senator Sakaja Johnson.
Madam Speaker, I was initially enjoying the submission by Professor Abraham, who happens to have gone to a very good school, the Duke of York. But Madam Speaker, is it in order for a lawyer of his stature who understands the principle of equality of the vote to question why Nairobi with 17 should get more, yet one constituency with 400,000 people in Nairobi represented by the same person, yet in Tharaka-Nithi it is a quarter, goes against the same principle that he is extolling as, you know, a legal scholar, Madam Speaker? Why is it a problem? Madam Speaker, if you want to get a constituency, it does not mean that those who deserve should not get. You should lay claim as to why you should also get, but not those who are underrepresented. Madam Speaker, 400,000, 300,000 people with one member of parliament, and we're talking about equality of vote, Madam Speaker.
Senator Kindiku, continue. I don't know. We have something called...
I hope you held my time for 2 minutes.
Point of argument these days.
Madam Speaker.
Continue, yeah.
Senator for Nairobi did not listen to me. constitutional moment would exist when there is a general and near universal convergence of opinion among the general public that the amendments are not only necessary, but are also in the public interest. These amendments are neither necessary nor in the public interest, Madam Speaker. Many of the provisions in the BBI bill are laughable, to say the least. Honorable Speaker, we are amending the Constitution to make Kenya compliant with the regional integration issues. You don't need to. Article 2.5, which provides that any treaty between Kenya and foreign countries become part of the law of Kenya, is the avenue to use to reach to this desired amendments. Madam Speaker, how do I support an amendment to include duties of the citizen, responsibilities of the citizen? Just implement the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, which Kenya ratified in October 1981. How do you support amendments to strengthen Chapter 6 and fight corruption when we have 12 acts of parliament speaking on corruption, and corruption has tripled in the period? Madam Speaker, we are only creating a larger parliament, a larger executive, and entrenching exclusion by saying that once you have representatives of 2 or 5 of the 44 communities of Kenya represented in the national executive, then there will be stability. And the 39, the rest of the 39 are left to their own devices. Madam Speaker, I have seen a curious amendment. And I want to speak to two things because I can see I have 5 minutes. The first one, the danger we are creating by deleting Article 123, which is on the decision making of the Senate. That danger will live with us for the next 2 centuries. Many people who are proposing that Senate now becomes a one senator, one vote matter do not understand the fundamental differences between the National Assembly, which is wired ideologically as a majoritarian house, and the Senate, which is the upper house, which is supposed to balance between the interests of the nation by equalizing counties, irrespective of population and size. Upper chambers around the world exist to only perform that role. Include that as much as we are pushing 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 everything, 1 what, we don't lose the nation. And that is why in this house, Lamu with its 2 constituencies has 1 vote. Nairobi with its 18 has 1 vote. Unlike in the National Assembly, this is an ideological issue. I am ashamed. My colleagues, senators, can sit here and supervise the massacre of devolution in this house. And Madam Speaker, this house now we are going to have 94 senators. The extra colleagues who are coming on gender issues will have no work. This is a house of devolution. Remain in the National Assembly, do affirmative action programs. What are you coming to do here that the elected senator per county cannot do? We are a house of equity, a house of devolution, and a house of balancing the units and the center. The final remarks, Madam Speaker, I want to make. I remain of the respectful and firm view that BBI and its proposals to amend the Constitution are the unpleasant result of an unfortunate process aimed at settling political scores. All the proposals can be effected without tampering with the Constitution by faithfully implementing the Constitution.
Point of order from Senator Nyamunga. Just have a minute.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. And with all this due respect to the Senator, Professor Kindiki, what is the insinuation that is giving us by saying that what is the rest of the women who will be elected as second members of the county members to this house mean? What does that mean? Does it mean that women will not add value to this house, Madam Speaker?
Thank you, Senator. You have 2 minutes remaining.
And for that reason, I will ignore the question because it is not relevant to what I said. I want to conclude my remarks, Honorable Speaker, with a message to the people of Kenya. When this bill is presented to you, the people of Kenya, in the referendum, because I have lived long enough in this country and I know what is likely to happen. By fire, by force, this process may go on with or without what we have said. This is my message to the people of Kenya. For Kenya, our dear country, to advance from where we are at the moment. The people must learn to be the rightful masters over all the 3 arms of government and the organs of state, the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. And therefore, the people in the instant case ought to overthrow not the Constitution, but the men who seek to pervert the Constitution in wherever they are holed up. Smoke them out, overthrow them, and defend the Constitution. And therefore, Madam Speaker, on this afternoon, on the floor of the House, so that I, Kithure Kindiki, Senator for Tharaka-Nithi, that I will be found to have stood on the right side of history when it mattered, at a time when our country is going through unprecedented difficulties. I will be on the people's side, and I will stand on the right side of history. Madam Speaker, I oppose this motion in totality.
Thank you, Senator. Honorable Senators, it is now 12:30 p.m. Time to adjourn the House. The Senate therefore stands adjourned until today afternoon, May 4th, 2021, 2:30 p.m.
National salute! Freedom arms! Your Excellency, Guard of Honor, mounted by the Kenya Army, present and ready for your inspection now. Excellency, I have
how I was effective, because nobody can trust you to promote you that fast if you are not dynamic. Now, the problem that we confronted in KCC is when you go to an organization who does not want change. Okay? An organization where there is no engineering, where when we want to do engineering, you are stepping on people's toes. And that's why I said I am impressed by the judiciary, because the engineering process for the last 10 years shows that the judiciary wants to fly. Now, that is contrary to an organization who doesn't want to fly. Now, when I was MD, I was MD for only 1 year. Now, when I became MD, I had set in the program of engineering the organization. When I started engineering the organization, we had to close some centers where we felt we were making losses. As we closed those centers, we stepped on people's foot. Okay? As you obviously step on people's feet and they are strong enough, they want you out. And that's what happened. So in the judiciary, I feel there is a distinction. This is an organization which wants change. This is an organization which wants people who have got that, I say, that second ability to come and assist it. So I want to say, I hope you don't want me to give you a specific example of people's foot that I stepped on. So I want to say that I stepped on people's foot, and hence I was saying a very bit out. Thank God immediately hired my law firm and went to international practice in Arusha, at The Hague, and few other places.
Have you interacted with the JSC before? The position that you sought to raise the first time? Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. That's all. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Madam Council. Good afternoon, Honorable AG. Could you tell us what you understand by the term collegiality, and why you think it is important in the Supreme Court?
Thank you. The Supreme Court is made up of only 7 judges. These judges have the powers to make any decision which affects the human, which affects the citizens. Now, if these judges don't work together, they will create a wrong impression that the court is not united, it's fighting. So collegiality enables these judges to work as brothers and sisters in the delivery of justice. They give guidance to what should happen in previous matters. So I'm trying to say, Honorable AG, collegiality is very important. It is in fact, it is the bedrock of any Supreme Court, because using the Supreme Court can be able, and judges need to come together. They don't need to be selfish. They need to come and look at issues together and say, if we decide this way, we'll be able to keep our country and our country together.
How do they exercise that collegiality? How would you, if you became a judge of the court, enhance it?
Now, if I came a judge in this court, I think somebody said that I'll be number 7. And being number 7, and that's really what I want. We have this hierarchy of judges. As number 7, what I will want to do is, when I go to that court, is to sit and listen. I listen to my brothers, my senior brothers, the Chief Justice, the Lady Chief Justice, so that they can give us guidance. But I not only listen, but I give my opinions in a very humble and respectful manner. I give my opinions in a very humble and respectful manner.
Does collegiality involve another man to be a decision independence as a judge?
No, I don't think it will affect my independence as a judge. I've seen it, and Honorable AG, in my judgment, in the judgment which was given at The Hague, I looked at that collegiality and I liked it. 3 judges agree, 1 judge agree, but on different reasons. We use different reasons. then another judge doesn't agree. So this collegiality, even if you are friends, you want to work together, you may want to put your own views on why you don't want to agree with your brothers, and they need to appreciate you as you appreciate them.
We discussed the inherent power of the court and the aspect of discretion. When you replace judicial activism in the future shaping of the Supreme Court?
Now, judicial activism is very important in developing jurisprudence. But there should be also judicial restraint. The court should not go ahead always with that mind that we must make jurisprudence in this matter. The court should always target justice. But if through that justice there is some activism, if through that justice there is the court is not sticking to its former decision, so be it.
So you agree, Council, should the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court be expanded or should it be restricted, and if so, why?
For the time being, the Supreme Court matters that go to the Supreme Court.
And if I ask you, wherever you can cite a decision where the court has had occasion to express itself, it would be very useful to us.
Yes, I want to say that this court is a young court. I have looked at the jurisdiction of this court, the documents that provide for its jurisdiction, the Supreme Court Act, and the Constitution. I have compared it with other jurisdictions. Take for instance the Supreme Court of the UK. You will find that that kind of jurisdiction is almost similar. It's my humble submission that for the time being, it's important to leave that jurisdiction of the court the way it is, because the court is able to utilize that jurisdiction in a good manner.
Are you able to relate that to any decision of our court here? You also mentioned that you had occasion to act as a amicus curiae.
Yes.
In determining whether or not a person should be admitted as such, as a friend of the court, what considerations should the Supreme Court make?
I think the Supreme Court has made a decision on what considerations should be taken into account for somebody to be appointed an amicus curiae. This is in the case of the Law Society, where the court clearly stated that for a person to be appointed an amicus curiae, that person must add value. Only the officer, the role of an amicus curiae in an adversarial system is totally different from other jurisdictions.
Could we just do it in our own court here?
Yes. So I want only to say in other jurisdictions, in fact, the amicus curiae is an investigator. If somebody wants to add value to justice. So I want to say in our courts, an amicus curiae should be that person who is able to add value to the decision which is being made by the court.
Any other considerations, sir?
Maybe that's what I have for the time being. Yes.
Finally, you mentioned the aspect of corruption in the discussion.
Yes.
I think you're well aware that the Supreme Court has been accused, or the judges have been accused of bribery, of perceived corruption and so forth. What recipe would you, with your vast experience in this area, give to your colleague, any of the judges of that court, to remove that perception?
Your Lordship, your Honorable OD, perception of corruption comes in when there is delay in delivering justice. think if the judiciary is able to deliver justice instantly.
Let's please restrict ourselves to the Supreme Court.
Yes. So what I'm trying to say, even in the Supreme Court, if we are able to deliver justice instantly without delay, those perceptions of corruption will be there. And I can dare say, if in a situation where proceedings move faster, in a situation where people know what they should expect, that within a certain time frame, their decisions will be given. The aspect of corruption will only be limited to those people who are indeed corrupt and who the relevant government bodies should go against.
Are there instances of undue delay in the judgments of the Supreme Court currently?
I will say there are instances of undue delay, but there are instances where parties might not be able to know when their decisions will be given. When decisions are being given on notice, for instance, that causes anxiety to people.
So one of the recommendations would be to have definite dates for...
Absolutely. So, the other recommendation is what I said, that the rules must be very simple. For instance, I was looking at one of the instances, if you look at the rules managing the filing of an application for the state of emergency. If somebody has to file, a petition to the Supreme Court, wanting the court to give some decision on whether the state of emergency should be taking place. Now, if you compare those rules prepared by the Supreme Court, the rules provide for a ruling which will be given after 6 months. But look at the procedure in Article 58. In Article 58, when a state of emergency has been declared, that state of emergency must be approved by Parliament within 14 days. If it has to be extended, it must be again approved by Parliament without a bigger majority within 2 months. Now imagine in the Supreme Court, that is taking 6 months, and yet Parliament, with a serious majority, will give that decision, will give its hearing or its decision within 2 months. So if you compare the two, you will only say there is need to fast track our rules so that our rules also are as faster as what should happen. By the way, my feeling, my position should be that a decision on matters of the state of emergency should be made within 14 days. Because by the 14th day when that matter goes to Parliament, then it has taken another jurisdiction. It's been tackled by another body of competent jurisdiction as the judiciary. So we need to simplify our rules. Otherwise, those rules will not inhibit justice.
The point is well taken. Thank you very much, Council. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Thank you, Sharon. Good afternoon. I want us to focus now on a different angle. I'm sure that we are just referring to the courts with the state officer. And as a state officer, we will be rated by the particles at one of those articles that the state officer is Article 10. In terms of principles of governance, reducing risk connection, two of those principles of governance are Article 10 that made all state officers, two of them.
One has already indicated is patriotism.
Correct.
As a state officer,
Just listed the next one is
the next one is accountability.
Yes. Could you share this connection how you're able to apply patriotism as a state officer in that court?
Now, in that court, as a judge of the Supreme Court, I want to look at all the decisions that I will give as decisions which will promote our country, as decisions which will make sure socio-economically, politically, but also people should be able to enjoy their rights. So as a patriot, I want my fellow Kenyans, when they look at me, they will say, we have a judge in the Supreme Court who is able to protect us, who is looking at our affairs. Okay. Secondly, accountability. This will not I will just now turn to Article 232, Powers of Public Service. Yes. Powers of Powers of Public Service, which are very, very important as you serve the public. Because we are really sure there's two powers that are brought to you in terms of the service, public service. I think one of the other values is that accountability is also found there. Yes, that's what I like that one. Yes, so I think there's accountability. That's the one number that I can't assist you. Yes. High professional ethics. Yes. So the mission is how we would promote that value. The Supreme Court, the Tribunal as a branch, and as a corporate court. Ethics simply means professional. Yes. I want to say first of all, ethics simply means you are fair, you are somebody who is straightforward, who is able to do your things. Now when it says high professional ethics, it means your purpose is so high that when people look at you, they say, you're like Caesar's wife. People should not think something negative about you. You are able to uphold the standards of that institution, so that when people look at you, they say, wow, this is the greatest institution we have. Okay, is it the staff that is serving you? The staff. The staff will be working under you in terms of that value, in terms of that article. Yes, the staff, I think when you are working, I have had this relationship. When you want to work with your staff well, you should be very professional. You should not be bringing your problems from your home to your office. You should not be able again to divert and think of other things in that office. Basically you should handle every member of the staff in a respectable manner. If the business is a clerk, you should know that it's because of this service that we are able to propel our services. So you should not only respect your staff, but you should also hold them dearly. Could we focus on efficiency and productivity? That's part of the article. As well as the staff is concerned, focus on efficiency and productivity. Yes. When you are in an office, efficiency and productivity are core values. In any office, you will need to come up with terms of reference of what really you want to do. You need first of all to understand what really you want to do in that office. Put targets, okay, on what should be achieved. You also come up with ways in which all your staff members can be able to achieve those targets. And those ways must be reasonable. They must take into consideration the problems, the disabilities, the challenges that your staff have. And then from there, you should do a roadmap on how to effect those commitments.
All right. Then I see that from your CV here, you were once in public service, January 1992 to May 1992. If I'm wrong,
yes.
Tell me. Yes. You are State Counsel in the Office of the Honorable Attorney General.
Yes.
For those 5 months.
Yes.
And those 5 months, you are actually director of how many companies? Around 5 or no? Around 6. You also represented the Honorable Attorney General's Office in a number of meetings, international, in a space of 5 months.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So what was your productivity in those companies? That you are representing
now,
the AG.
now, the AG then, I think that time, most of the companies that we had were state corporations. So these state corporations needed the AG. The AG was a director. Take, for instance, Mumias, the sugar sector. In all those companies, the AG was a director. But the AG being too busy, he wanted alternate directors. So I was representing the AG in those companies as an alternate director.
I'm saying for 5 months.
Yes.
If I take case of Mumias Sugar Company, or Sony Sugar Company, or Kenya Sugar Authority, or Shemali, or Tanda, what can I remember you for?
I won't be able to measure my productivity because of one reason. One, I didn't stay there for long for the simple reason at that time, the salary which we were being paid at the ages, I'm the eldest in my family and I could not be able to upkeep my siblings. So for that time, I was able to attend all those meetings. When I went in, I found that most of the meetings were taking place. So I was able to attend those meetings, and I wrote the reports to the relevant AG on what we had, on what was supposed, what we had discussed in those meetings.
What I'm saying, yes, with the share, if I go to the records of Mumia Sugar Company, or Kenya Sugar, or Suni, or Shemali, or Tanda, for the 5 months,
you will see me there.
You got to see that
you will see me there.
Councillor, I think it's good to listen to the answer before you
okay,
answer.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that brings me to this other question which Honorable Commissioner Macharia was asking, and I got interested to know, because you're talking about productivity and all those issues. From 2005 to date, you are director of the 13 companies. No. I have them. Oh, okay. You are not. This thing is misleading. Because I did bother to count them. There are 13 companies, but if you say no, I'm okay. Finally,
I'm saying not within 13 years.
No, 13 companies.
13 companies, yes, in between.
2005 to date.
Yes.
13 companies, you are director.
Yes.
Okay. Now I move on to my last questions through the share, and I happen to come from a farming community. And I'm interested in KICC. You are there for 3-4 years.
Yes.
It's pretty quite long, actually. Most contracts go for 3 years. The KCC, what can they remember you for?
Most of those areas which were making losses. As we did that, I also requested stakeholders to look for partners whom we could who will come to invest in KCC. I remember Tetra Pak South Africa for 1 year came back to me and said there were 2 companies in South Africa which wanted to invest in KCC. One company was called Clover, and another one was called Palmalat International. I traveled to South Africa with a few directors. We signed an agreement with Palmalat International to come as a strategic partner in KCC. Palmalat had agreed to pump into KCC more than 3 billion Kenya shillings.
3 billion.
And it was going to take over the management, to give us the managing director, the chairman, and the director for finance. And I was going to move to the position of general manager. Immediate that time, when people learned that Palmalat, we had signed an agreement, they came in and said, we cannot allow South African companies to come and run our company.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Dr.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner Gishohi. Now it's the time for Commissioner Koskei.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Wakili.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
I've gone through your bundle of documents and your CV and all the things that you've done, and you are widely read. You have worked internationally. In fact, you are one of those people who are supposed to be candidates for international assignments like ICC and the rest. So I'm wondering, with that experience, academic achievements, what motivated you to apply for this position, or what are you looking for in this position that you have applied?
Now, thank you, Honorable Commissioner. I have practiced law for the last 30 years. As I've said, I've done more than 3,000 cases in our legal system, from the judiciary, from the magistrates court, up to the Supreme Court. Through God's grace, I was able to do cases at the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda in Arusha, for both at the at Arusha and at the appeals chamber at The Hague. I have been able, Honorable Commissioner, to be a member. Again, I want to indicate there, I'm a member of several international organizations which deal with legal issues. And one of those organizations is the International Association for Researchers and Lecturers on intellectual property law, which organization is a very active organization. We meet annually in one of the universities to deliberate on new issues of law. I'm a member of the Commonwealth.
Okay, I want to understand. I want to see whether you saw a gap in Supreme Court or judiciary.
Yes.
And that gap can be suitably be filled by yourself.
Yes.
Because of the competences that you are bringing in. So what is the gap, or what are the challenges that you are seeing that judiciary or Supreme Court is going through, that the competences that you are bringing in will sort it out?
Thank you.
And let us focus on that so that we can move very fast.
I was trying to build my competency.
Yes.
I was trying to say, having gone all these places, I was convinced that I have something which I need to bring to the judiciary in Kenya. And that is really what made me to apply for this job. I feel I'm qualified. I have had enough international exposure. I have been able to correlate various issues which maybe are not applicable in our judiciary. And having seen all these problems for the last 30 years, not problems, challenges affecting our judiciary, I said I need to come in and play a key role, play my part, a small part in improving our judiciary.
Okay, in your tour of duty outside this country, and also being a practitioner here, you must have realized that in businesses like contracts, like international investors, and even those who come to work like contractors and the rest, they always try their best to avoid court system in Kenya. If you look at their contracts, they always refer to arbitration in London, New York, Hong Kong, Beijing, and other jurisdictions. But why do you think this is so? And what are you bringing in to sort out this issue so that the investors will have confidence in judiciary, and thereby, help us to build our economy and reduce unemployment rate that we have?
Honorable Commissioner, that's a great question. People in Kenya, not even investors, most people, I think most people in Kenya look at the judiciary as a place, when you file your case, it will take so long. So if you are an investor and you want to make your money fast, you will need to go to a system where justice is delivered immediately. And in most cases, arbitrations, people manage their the process of justice. They are the ones who appoint the arbitrator. They are the ones who pay the arbitrator. The arbitrator will be able to give instant justice. Okay. Now, the judiciary, what I'm bringing to the judiciary is what I indicated to this court, to the Judicial Service Commission, that unless we improve our road, the narrow road that the judiciary is traveling on, that is the road which every Kenyan wants to see becoming a highway. We want to, in fact, I want to say, in the whole world, we have got 195 countries, and out of the 195 countries of the the UN, 54 are the Commonwealth, and these 54 apply the adversarial system. Now, out of these 54, I have done some research. Almost 32 countries have a hybrid adversarial system where they have amended their rules to suit their justice. Kenya, we haven't. We are still on the old adversarial system, which we got in 1897. We should also take into account our adversarial system we have never researched as to whether we really need this adversarial system. Okay? So nobody, I like politicians, because politicians, in 1962 they said, we want a federal government. In 1966 they said, we want a unitary government. In 2010 they said, no, we want even a presidential government. So in other arms of government, there have been changes. In our judiciary, we now have that one small thing which we need to change. Interrogate ourselves and say, are these rules working for us? It's my submission before this commission that we need to change our rules. And if we change our rules, we'll make the judiciary the best place to practice. Justice must be done instantly. Advocates out here, we have cases which we want to be determined tomorrow. I will want to file a case and even ask the judge that, please, by tomorrow, give us an order. Maybe a case of where a client is being evicted from a residence. Such cases should not take 5 years. Such cases should take 14 days. So my position is, what I'm bringing in the judiciary is the experience that I have had in other jurisdictions, which informed me to suggest for you the 6 strategies that the judiciary will take.
Thank you. This is now a follow-up question. When you are responding to the chair, you explained and said corruption in judiciary is not systemic. What is it? Wonderful. When a problem is systemic, it means that problem is eating into the organization. You cannot do away with it. You have to look at it. Now, in my research, when I looked at the problems affecting the judiciary, case backlog, corruption, okay, all these problems are effects of a specific cause. For instance, let's talk of malaria. When you have malaria, you have a headache. When you have malaria, you have no appetite. When you have malaria, you have pain, you have fever. My position is, and that is true, and I want to converse, it's a reality. Unless you remove malaria, the headache will still go on. In our position at the judiciary, the headache which we have is corruption. Backlog of cases is fever. Lack of appetite is the loss of files. If you treat, even if you take a ton of Panadols every day to kill corruption, I can tell you, Honorable Commissioner, that headache will still be there. Okay. Let's deal with the problem. Yes, and the problem is the rules. Yes, on corruption still, you also mentioned that when you arrive here, in 6 months, corruption will vanish. How will you deal with it? Now. Can you be clear? Let us be clear. Yes. Down there. If I were Chief Justice, I could be able to implement that.
but there will be rebels, because not everybody will want to take that. And that's why I did not want to apply for that position. Because if you bring serious changes in an organization, there is what we call organizational politics. An organization usually behaves in a certain manner. If you are a foreigner, you want to go to that organization, you bring serious changes. Studies have shown employees rebel, okay? But if you are part and parcel of that organization, and you are able to show people why they need to change, people will change. So what I'm only saying, if the Honorable Deputy Chief Justice was here, and he takes up that, I can tell you she will make a name for herself in the next 3 months. That she has reduced corruption. If she is able to appoint a committee which can harmonize all the practice rules from the Magistrate Court to the Court of Appeal. I want to say, and Honorable Commissioner Wasame will bear with me witness, in the Court of Appeal, we are always, when filing an appeal, we are always interested in form. Can that, in fact, my suggestion is, can that form of filing cases in the Court of Appeal be applied in all other courts? Such that when a file moves from the High Court to the Court of Appeal, we are not interested on form. We are not interested on justice. If you look at the practice rules for the Court of Appeal, the High Court, and the Supreme Court, they are talking of which manner, how you need to file your documents, how you need to underline them. What I'm now trying to say, can that be history? So that when somebody comes to court, his documents were already filed in that format.
Okay, thank you. Another follow-up question is on when you are responding to Commissioner Macharia. He asked you whether you have interacted before with DSC. And did I hear no?
Yes.
You've not appeared before?
I've not applied for
any position?
No.
Our record states that you've applied for tribunals.
Oh yes, tribunals. No, I was thinking of a judge. I applied as I was interviewed, but I thought the way the interview was, I applied for a position of a chairman of a tribunal, and
okay,
I did not get it.
Okay.
Yes.
So my final,
that was a long time.
My final question is: have you ever filed for any political position?
Indeed.
When was it? And you did not indicate in your CV that.
Now, why did it indicate? Because I didn't win. So I said these are trials which you try and you don't win. If you don't win, it doesn't come part of you.
Yes.
Yes. It's like putting in my. If I'm not appointed judge of the Supreme Court, I'll not put it in my CV.
So I'm asking that because as you are preparing to come here, your campaign branding is still running. So do you think that there is a problem? Because I saw on your Facebook, on your walls, the calendars are there. Governors 045, I'm coming. Tokeros, Yui, Ekasi. How is that?
Allow me to say,
yes.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that question. Yes. I want to tell you, those things are not put by me. Those things, there are so many supporters in the rural area who would even want you to be their governor, even if you don't want. Yes. So I am not a fan of putting my things on Facebook.
Yes.
If you go to my Facebook page, you will not get anything political. But if you just Google my name, there are several, people who like you for one thing or the other. Well, allow me to say this.
Yes.
And I have written some religious books to show you that I believe in God, and God is my defender. When I've taken a position, I take it fully. If I get this job, I know there is something which God wants me to do here. And that is ensure that justice reaches the poor person in my backyard in Kisii. I want somebody to enjoy services of the judiciary. The judiciary, people should love the judiciary. The way people love to running to a chief, it is important for also people to say, I want today to go to court because somebody has abused me. I want people to appreciate. And that's why I said, if through God's grace, you are able to admit my plea that I become a judge. I'll not only be a judge of the Supreme Court, but I'm ready to work to make sure that we turn around this judiciary. Indeed, after this, maybe if Honorable Chairperson allows, I've even come up with a strategic vision of what I need to do in the judiciary. There are several things which need to be done here. And I thank God that God has given me this exposure, and I want to plow it back to the judiciary as a patriotic Kenyan.
Thank you, Wakili.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Council, before I go to our last commissioner to ask you questions, let me just clarify something.
Yes, please.
Because one of the strategies you gave us was right sizing. And you did emphasize that on Council, right sizing.
Okay.
But then when you did the right sizing in KCB, they removed you. When you did the right sizing in KCC, they removed you also. So now if you bring it here in the judiciary, it will not work.
Now, thank you. Now, what I said, the judiciary is ripe for right sizing. Okay? Now, what I want to say here, Honorable Chairperson, is that if the judiciary implements this system of making sure that justice travels on a smooth line, that cases are smooth, now the judiciary can go back, because in your strategy, you have said some of your strategies is to employ, like now, I saw the strategy for, which is current, the judiciary wants to employ 201 judges. Now, when you have come up with a streamlined roadmap, there will be right sizing. What right sizing means, you will want to question yourself. Do we really need the 201 judges?
No, that's all. I think I understand that.
And my submission is, yes, you may not need them.
And I was just concerned, Council.
Yes.
Do you think there's a problem of change management? Because even that needs strategy, how to change. because I don't agree with you that as long as you are an outsider, you cannot do it. So
it is a problem. Indeed, I agree. It's a problem of change management. Yes. It's a problem of organizational politics. It's a problem of organizational culture. So when you come into an organization, for instance, when the Chief Justice comes in, good luck for us, he has been a judge for 18 years. So she will know who are the best person to carry her along. But if Mr. Nyaberi came in, I don't know anybody. If I want to implement this strategy, I might say, let's implement. Maybe Honorable Commissioner Evelyn, can you assist me on this? But maybe, there are those challenges.
But Council, I thought that is why you said you applied for this job, so you can bring something new.
Now, I applied for this job so that I can give him the information, so that this information, I want to deliver my information. And when I'm in, it will be easier for me to manage my information. People will respect it. If you talk from outside, people will say, who is he? Who is he after all? We have not ever worked here. So, but when you are in the judiciary, you can be able to convince your fellow members in a quiet way, in a nice way. In conferences, they can give you an audience and say, Mr. Nyaberi, come and make a presentation. I can do that presentation. And through that, they will be convinced and say, let's try. And in trying, we have already made it in the judiciary.
Okay, thank you very much, Council. Honorable Ephraim, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, Wakili.
Good afternoon, Madam.
I was skimming through your book,
yes,
Sexual Offenses and Offenses Against Morality.
Yes, please.
And I looked at the paragraphs where you handled homosexuality.
Yes.
I was hoping to get some insights into your thinking about the subject. Basically, I saw you basically explained the law and gave a digest of a case or two. But I would still want to get behind your head on that issue.
Okay.
Do you have any acquaintances who belong to the LGBTQI community?
Now, let me answer by saying I'm a Christian. I wrote that book because I'm a lecturer. I need to show the students what is the law, what is the position.
I'm not even questioning why you wrote.
But my position is I don't subscribe.
You do not have, my question was, do you have friends?
No.
Or acquaintances who belong to that community?
I don't.
Have you engaged with them so as to know what challenges they face in our community?
Okay, allow me to say, when I was taking my PhD at Copenhagen, the students whom I was teaching, that was a way of life. So you just take them the way they are, because in their community that's what they understand. But in my local setting, I think I've not gotten in touch with anybody who is in that category.
I'm not aware how it is in Copenhagen and whatever challenges they may be facing. So you do not know about the Kenyan situation?
No, I don't know the Kenyan situation.
You don't know the Kenyan situation?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I want to just read you something I came across as I was reading some of those cases that dealt with the LGBT, or rather gay and lesbians.
Yes.
Gay sex is not a disorder or illness or an abnormal act. It is simply a variant of human sexual behavior determined by physiological, biological, and social factors which essentially ought not to be criminalized. Now maybe you can tell us what your views are concerning that.
That's very true. That's very true. I want to say most people who are in that position, they suffer some psychological problems. For me, that's how I look at it.
The person says it's not a problem. It's not a mental disorder or a mental illness. It is something that comes out of your physical build.
Allow me to say the level of sanity differs from one person to another. You know, people may not know that that's a problem until they confront that it's really a problem. The way I look at it in our African setting, it's a problem, and those people need to be treated. They need to be advised if they are ready to be advised. Insofar as I'm concerned, homosexuality is an abomination. I want to say that.
So you do not subscribe to that?
No. I will be very firm on that. Even in the court, I'll be very firm on those issues, because I'm a believer. I believe that God created man to be man. God created us, and the way He created us, He knew why He created us like that.
Okay.
But I will not criminalize it. I'll only be saying those people need assistance. Okay.
Okay, now maybe you can also share with us your views concerning a case that was handled, I'd call it landmark, that was handled by the Court of Appeal in respect, or rather the case is the NGO board versus EG, in respect to registration of an NGO that was seeking to advance the rights of gay and lesbian people.
Yes, I remember that case was handled by Honorable Justice Lenaula, then it went on appeal. He agreed that those people have rights. They should have their own organization registered, and they should be allowed to do their own things the way they do. Okay? Which may be variant from me.
Allowed to do the things that they do?
No, they should be under the right of association. They should be able to enjoy their right of association.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But for me, if you look at the first sentence of our Constitution, the first sentence of our Constitution clearly says, we believe in God. We trust in our Creator. And our Creator must have a system of operation. So insofar as I may not, if I were the one, I could really restrain myself from having them registered, but that's what the court said then.
You've heard of people who also belong to that community that manifest physiological features of both sexes.
Yes.
They are a creation of their
Those ones are a creation. We need, in fact, to allow them as a third gender in our country. They are not the ones who created themselves. They found themselves. So we need them to enjoy their rights. If it was my child, I really feel for him or for her, and I want him to enjoy his rights. But people who are, moving from their normal position to another position, you need to look at that.
Okay, so do you think that the decision, the case I was just referring to you to, basically the holding was that the bottom line was that the state of being gay alone is not really an offense. So that if you are gay and you want to form an association, it doesn't mean you are forming it to commit an offense. The offense only comes about when you now take steps to commit the acts that are outlawed under Section 162 of the Penal Code.
Now, I have
Do you think that is now diabolical?
Yes, I have written a lot on criminal law. Even the commencement of an action leading to an offense is an offense. The immediate you imagine that you want to commit an offense and it is discovered that you were imagining of committing that offense, that's an offense already. It's an inchoate offense. So my position is to allow these people to register an organization, even though they have their basic rights. Indeed, it conflicts the Constitution. And the Constitution is very clear. We are a God-fearing people as Kenya.
So now you're changing your position?
That?
Because earlier you had said they should be given the right to associate. Do you now change your position?
No. What is that what I said? I'm
that
sorry.
is what you say.
I'm sorry. I'm only saying we should be cautious on what ruling we have to give in order to foster such things.
Okay, maybe we can leave that for now. The other question I want to ask you, I listened to you speak very passionately about backlog and strategies we can employ.
Yes.
And the 6-point plan you even gave us.
Yes.
To eradicate backlog from our system.
Yes.
And I think that you have very brilliant ideas, some of which actually already captured under Order 11 of the Civil Procedure Rules.
Yes.
Maybe we just need to tweak them here and there. So one of the strategies that we also employ to eradicate backlog is to dismiss dormant cases.
Yes.
The court can do so on its own initiative.
Yes.
But what can a party do? If a case is stagnating in court, he has been sued, and no action is being taken in that case, and the court has not dismissed that case.
Now, allow me to say, I have confronted that situation and again as I practice law in Kenya, where cases are dismissed for want of prosecution. Now, you may file a case, and people have problems, okay, which they need to be solved immediately. But when they see these problems taking long, people have to move on, okay? Now, what I would want the court to do, this issue of dismissing cases only arises because our system of justice takes long. If these cases were heard immediately, then you would be able to sort out problems. So I want to say this is a reactive strategy to do away with cases.
Which is still a strategy.
Which is a strategy, but it's not a good strategy.
Okay.
It's not a good strategy because dismissing some of these cases, you have not solved people's problems. Okay, you have not solved the actual problem. But imagine if this case was heard within 30 days and the judgment was given within 30 days, you would have sorted people's problems. Even if you wrote the judgment based on documents. Because right now everybody knows how to write. People will be able to ventilate their problems on documents. So if you are able to give judgment within 30 days, much the better. And even dismiss it at that time, because at that time, people will show that they have no interest. But coming up with a service week, for me, sometimes I find it as a reactive strategy, which sometimes doesn't work. Because, for instance, I don't know, last year, a few of my cases were thrown out. But I went back through applications and reinstated them. Okay? So it doesn't work. It's a reactive strategy. In delivering justice, let's make sure that we have a system that vindicates everybody.
You realize that for a case to be concluded, there are several players.
Absolutely.
So by the time a court is dismissing dormant cases, parties have not taken steps to prosecute their case. There's been no action in that file for over 3 years. So the court takes the recourse to dismiss the cases.
I can tell you I have experienced that. For instance, right now, if I have to take a date for a case, right now the dates if you go to our registries. The dates you will be given for hearing is next year. Okay? If you have a date for next year, the immediate I take a date now, I was taking a date last week, I was given a date for April next year. Now, imagine between now, I've written a letter to my client because immediately I leave court, I write a letter to my client telling him your case will come in April next year. Which means my client should have a good record to remember that the case is coming. So what you will find is that most people, they don't keep records. Even us, we don't have a diary for next year. So we are using a notebook. So even in our management system, it will make most of those cases, the client now next year, if he thinks he will forget about it. But those are the challenges.
That is not the issue that I had raised.
Yes.
It was about dormant cases, not cases with far dates that you forget. But anyway, my original question was, you are a party and you've been sued, and the case has stayed in court, no action, the court is not dismissing, the person who has sued you has not taken any dates. What recourse do you have?
Now, the recourse I have, that's what I gave as one of my strategies. The only recourse which we should have, we should utilize commissioners of oversight.
You are a party.
A
defendant.
A party, you have no recourse because you will be told the date is next year. The date is 2 years. You have no recourse. There is no justice. You just take it up and say, oh, what could I do? So most people who are defenders, again, you know, when you tell them that cases are not coming up, they forget about them. But that does not mean that the issue has vanished. The issue could be there, but there are no cases, but there are no dates. So that's why I was requesting this commissioner, because one of your mandate is to ensure that you promote justice and you propose the national government, or you come even with bills. If you came up with a bill fast-tracking all cases, justice is hard, and that is that's really the spirit of our constitution when it says cases must be heard immediately, just must be delivered immediately.
Is it the prerogative of only the plaintiff to fix a matter for hearing under the civil procedure rules?
No, the defendant can fix the matter, but you see, the defendant usually is defending himself. He has nothing to lose if a case is dismissed. Okay.
That is true.
Yes, so the defendant has no business with the case.
In the scenario I was giving you, the case has not been dismissed, the plaintiff has not taken steps, and you are the defendant. So you can't fix the matter for hearing. That is correct?
No. Again, it is a wrong position, but that's what happens. Okay? And again, you find defendants want to utilize that rule that if a case is not fixed for 3 years, it will be dismissed. So who am I to fix that date when a case is going to be dismissed in any case?
The defendant also has the option to apply for its dismissal.
Most defendants would not want to do that because, again, it's costly. Maybe their lawyers will tell them, for me to put in an application, you need to pay me. So people don't want to do that because they don't want to spend.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Now, I was looking through your vetting documents. We received a complaint from someone who has sued you.
Yes.
In respect to an accident that happened before I joined Kenya School of Law. Motor vehicle registration number KAH 663 in 1999. You were sued in 1999.
Yes.
The case was concluded.
Yes.
It's pending appeal.
Yes.
This case took, because it was concluded in 2019, took 10 years. It's an injury claim. What does that make you feel?
Now, that again shows you the system which we need to work on. Because I, as the defendant, I don't need to take a date. And that's what I was telling you. I don't need to take a date. You know, the way our rules are, okay? It is the plaintiff who was supposed to take a date and ventilate on his cases.
Wakili, our rules allow you to take a date.
Yes, but no, that's true.
For someone who was speaking very passionately about eradicating backlog, I'm having difficulty reconciling this.
No. I'm not the court. I have not sat in the court. If you go to court and you are told the date is next year, what do you do? What do you do?
checked your response.
Yes.
And you yourself said that the plaintiff went to sleep from 2012 to 2016.
Yes.
And that is why I was asking you, what is your recourse as a defendant?
You see, this is a person who has sued me. He has sued me. Okay? And you can even see, even in the first stage, I had deposited money in court. Okay? So having deposited money, it's upon him even to apply to court and have that money released to her. Okay? I cannot go and take a date and say, let me take a date so that this person... So that's why I'm saying we should have strict rules on how justice should be vindicated. I have no role to play in that case. I think I have no blame at all. I have not been in the court system. I don't take dates. I don't hear matters. I'm just a litigant like any other litigant. Okay. I had a lawyer like any other lawyer.
You are not a litigant like any other litigant. You are a litigant who also happens to be an officer of the court.
Yes.
And that's why the standard set upon you is slightly higher than a regular litigant.
You know,
but anyway,
yes.
You have appealed that decision.
Yes.
I just want to hear from you in what circumstances an appellate court would interfere with an award in the lower court.
Now, that calls me to discuss the matter which is in court.
You don't feel comfortable discussing that?
The magistrate who will hear it.
It's okay. Maybe, it's okay if you don't feel comfortable.
Yes, I don't feel comfortable. But one thing is very clear. I think I could only summarize it in two ways. In that matter, the only person who has sued me who had an accident was that lady. Usually in an accident, there could be several people in a matatu who could have been hurt. Okay, so when I looked at the file, I did not have a report. I did not know about the accident. Maybe because Lakestar died, we could not be able to trace the documents. Now look at the contradictory nature of the evidence. I said I must defend myself. I don't mind if the lady is paid. Let her be paid. I don't mind. I've already deposited 600,000 in court for me to pursue the appeal. So if the court makes a decision that Ms. Nyaberi, this lady has to be paid, so be it. I'm there for justice.
Okay, thank you. Now, in your document, the other documents, the vetting documents, I noticed I did not see communication from the ethics and anti-corruption. Did you apply for clear?
Oh yes, we have it. I have the document. Yeah, even it was called. They wanted some explanation, which I gave them, and they have no problem with me. Okay.
And then I looked at your wealth declaration. You filed one initially.
Yes.
Which was not attested by a witness. Why is that?
I thought it was.
It wasn't.
Maybe that's a mistake. I'm sorry.
And I also noticed you did not indicate in the initial one.
It was an oversight.
I'm not done. You did not indicate your bank account balance. You still haven't?
I have. You can check.
I have received one which is a financial statement for Nyaberi and Company Advocates.
Yes.
I'm talking about you as your bank balance.
It is indicated in the document itself.
The same one for Nyaberi and Company?
Yes.
One and the same?
Yes, 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 yes.
For your spouse?
Indicated.
You have since filed. Okay, I think that's basically it. Thank you very much, and I wish you well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Council, there's something I needed to ask you because of the requirement of diversity. So, which is your county? The county, Council.
My county is Kisii County.
And ethnicity?
No.
Ethnicity?
Omogusi.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm sure you know what you're asking.
Yes.
So this brings us to the end of the interview. Council, we want to thank you for coming. And also mention that as a commission, we would want to have that paper that you talked about, the one that has strategies. I think anything that adds value to the judiciary is welcome, Council, and we want to thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I don't want to add anything. I want to thank you most sincerely for giving me this opportunity to come and appear before you. I'm very grateful. At least I've been able to communicate my needs, my position in respect of this position of judge of the Supreme Court. And I will humbly request that if I am given this job, I will take it as if I'm working for my God. I'll do it diligently, I'll do it in the best way, and I'll add value, and a lot of value, to the judiciary for posterity.
Thank you, Council. The Commission has noted that.
Yes.
Wish you all the best.
Thank you.
contemplate a Raila presidency, an entire community feels that they will be left out. That when people contemplate a Ruto presidency, an entire community feels that they will be victimized. We have to bring this to an end. And Madam Speaker, I support this bill because it's not just the one bill that we are discussing today. There are 20 different pieces of statute that have also been proposed that this House will process in the next 1 or 2 years. There are provisions relating to corruption. Madam Speaker, this House has found itself in a very embarrassing position. When I was in Public Accounts Committee, we used to refuse to listen to governors who had been asked to step out of office. It is now 3 years since some governors were asked to stay out of office. The governor of Samburu has been running Samburu from wherever. He has not been allowed to go back to the office, almost 3 years. And charges have been pressed against him. The matters are in court, but they are taking forever. I hope that of the various legislations that Parliament will need to pass, we will fast track that one that has to do with economic crimes. I know other speakers have said that the Constitution already has sufficient safeguards to ensure that we deal with corruption in this republic, but it does not hurt to add greater clarity to what the Constitution already has. Madam Speaker, this country, if you ask about the ideology of the regimes that have been in power, I will not say that the ideology has been democracy or good governance and such altruistic goals. The ideology of the regimes in this country has been pragmatism. There was no greater pragmatist than Jomo Kenyatta. There was no greater pragmatist than Daniel Arap Moi. Of course, Mwai Kibaki was less of a pragmatist, more of the economist, but there is no greater pragmatist than Uhuru Kenyatta, who in the heat of a disputed election was able to face one of his greatest political adversaries and shake hands and agree to chart a different course for the country. What Kenyans hope for is that they are genuine in this conversation. And Madam Speaker, if they are genuine in this conversation, then we will have found the ingredient that has been lacking in this country since independence: integrity and honesty when discussing the issues that affect the republic. But compromise and pragmatism being the hallmark of this republic, Madam Speaker, those who have followed constitution making in this country. In the 1950s, the Littleton Constitution, which allowed for the first time 8 African members to be elected to the LegCo, it was said to be too little. and it had great opposition. And there were intellectuals from the White Highlands who vehemently opposed having 8 people elected into the LegCo. It was passed. We made certain incremental gains. Later on, Madam Speaker, the Lennox Boyd Constitution came that expanded the number of members from 8 by 6 to 14. Again, it was considered to be too little because we didn't even have universal franchise for the African man. But, Madam Speaker, these compromises were the building blocks that led to independence and to the greater freedoms that we enjoy today. Even if you go to the 1960s, Madam Speaker, Lancaster 1, 2, and 3, there is the incidents where the Maasai community that went to Lancaster was forced to walk out because they felt that their issues around land had not been taken into consideration. But the Lancaster conferences made a lot of compromises. What was the solution to the land question? That was the biggest problem at that point in time. Just the same way today, perhaps one of the biggest questions is on ethnic antagonism and how to revive our economy. Madam Speaker, compromises were made on the land question. Not everyone was happy. Jaramogi was unhappy, but he decided to let the view that was espoused by Kenyatta to take precedence. And even Kenyatta did not get everything he wanted. KADU had a position which was at variance with the position of KANU. If they did not compromise, we would not have gotten the independence constitution. Madam Speaker, compromises were made on the coast question. The senators who come from the coast know very well that it was not until independence that the coast was considered to be part of the Republic of Kenya. There were those who felt that the coast should remain a separate entity or that it should federate with other regions like Zanzibar and other islands. But they made a compromise. Not everyone was happy. Today we have a united republic, and today we are so proud of the coast because it is one of our greatest sources of revenue, forex, in this republic. If it was not for that compromise, Madam Speaker, you can imagine what Kenya would have been without the flavor of the coast, without the beauty of the girls from the coast, without the nice Swahili of our brothers and sisters from the coast. Those are the compromises that made Kenya what it is today. Madam Speaker, compromises were made on federalism. The question was whether to go Majimbo or to go central government. KADU was strictly for federalism. When our leaders went to Lancaster, they were convinced that for us to get independence, let us make a compromise. Let us have a federal government. Let us have a parliamentary system. Madam Speaker, compromises were made on the release of Jomo Kenyatta. Before the release of Jomo Kenyatta, he was not a central player in the political party activities of the day because he had been in detention for far too long. And it took Jaramogi Oginga Odinga to make a compromise and to break ranks with his colleagues in the Africa Elected Members Organization. Many people were unhappy. Tomboya was unhappy. The children of home guards who were in the legislature were unhappy because they thought Kenyatta was a leader unto darkness. But it is because of that compromise that we got Kenyatta as our first president. Madam Speaker, in the 1990s, in the repeal of Section 2A of the Constitution, compromises were made. And in the repeal of Section 2A, none other than people who are today presidential candidates had declared that Kenya was not ready for multipartyism. President Moi went against the advice of clever lawyers and clever sycophants at that point to read the national mood. Madam Speaker, in 1997, in the IPPG, Inter-Parties Parliamentary Group, that brokered a truce that heralded the new constitution and a new set of regulations for the elections, Madam Speaker, compromises were made. And in 1997 IPPG, again, there were people who are even members of this Senate who opposed the IPPG deal. Today, everyone is saying that IPPG is probably one of the best compromises we have ever made in our political history. I'm saying all this, Madam Speaker, to illustrate that when you're making a constitution, you win some, you lose some. This is why the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill has got some good provisions that we should not throw out with the bathwater. We should not throw the baby out with the bathwater. When it comes to compromise, even in the 2010 Constitution, there were compromises. Madam Speaker, there was a debate on unconstitutional constitutional amendments. If you reflect, and I wish that the members of the Senate who are present at Serena were here today, because this Senate has got the advantage of institutional memory. At least 3 members of the Senate, Senator Orengo, Senator Wetangula, and Senator Orengo, were present at Serena. And Kaniri was not, I think it was the 3, Madam Speaker. When they came up with the Grand Coalition government, at that point, yes, and Mutula Kilonzo, senior, at that point, the idea of a Grand Coalition government was unconstitutional. The compromises that were made at that point, Madam Speaker, all those compromises, if you spoke to the smart lawyers of the day, they would have told you those were unconstitutional provisions. There was no way Mwai Kibaki was going to share power with Raila Odinga and people who are pretending to have won the election, because that was a perception. Mwai Kibaki was already sworn in. A compromise was made, something that appeared unconstitutional was agreed on, and from that consensus, we got an act of parliament that established the office of the Prime Minister, and that brought us some much-needed breathing space in the politics of Kenya. Madam Speaker, this country has always done well. Whenever we set aside our egos, and whenever we decide that for the greater benefit of the country, we are going to move together, but knowing that at the end of the day, we are not going to win.
Kama mnavyofahamu, nchi zetu mbili sio tu majirani, kama nilivyosema, ni marafiki na ndugu, na kutokana na urafiki tulionao tumewezesha kukuza ushirikiano wa kiuchumi. Kwa mfano, wakati wa mazungumzo yetu nimemwarifu kaka anashika nafasi ya 5 kwa uwekezaji ndani ya nchi ya Tanzania, ikitanguliwa na mataifa mengi kutoka nje, lakini ndani ya Jumuiya ya Afrika Mashariki Kenya ni ya kwanza na kiulimwengu inashika nafasi ya 5, ambapo imewekeza miradi 513 yenye thamani ya dola za Kimarekani 1.7 bilioni, ambayo imetoa ajira zipatazo 51,000 za Watanzania. Aidha, zipo kampuni 30 za Tanzania ambazo zimewekeza mtaji ndani ya Kenya wenye thamani ya shilingi za Kenya bilioni 19,330,000 na kutoa ajira kwa watu 2,600 na kama 40 hivi. Lakini nikaweka ahadi kwamba Tanzania sasa tutakuja kwa nguvu yote Kenya kuja kuwekeza ili kukuza ile ujazo wa biashara au volume of trade. Lakini mbali na uwekezaji, nchi zetu mbili pia ni wadau wakubwa wa biashara, ambapo kwenye miaka 5 iliyopita wastani wa biashara kati ya Tanzania na Kenya ni trilioni 1 shilingi za Kitanzania au dola za Kimarekani milioni 450, ambayo bado sio kubwa na tumeweka ahadi kuikuza. Hivyo basi, wakati wa mazungumzo yetu tumekubaliana kuhusu namna ya kukuza biashara na uwekezaji kati yetu. Kama mnavyofahamu, nchi zetu bado zina fursa nyingi sana, ikiwemo kwenye masuala ya kilimo, viwanda, uvuvi, ufugaji na utalii. Tuna fursa kubwa sana. Mungu ametupendelea. Sasa tunakwenda kuzitumia fursa hizi kukuza biashara kati yetu, lakini kati yetu na mataifa ya nje. Lakini kwa lengo la kukuza biashara pia na uwekezaji kati yetu, tumekubaliana kuendelea kushughulikia baadhi ya changamoto, hususan vikwazo visivyo vya kodi ambavyo vinatokea katika mipaka yetu. Tumekubaliana kwamba hivyo sasa vikaondoke, na kwa pamoja tumeitaka tume yetu ya ushirikiano baina ya Kenya na Tanzania iwe inakaa na kutoa suluhu ya vikwazo vinavyojitokeza sasa hivi na halafu, ili vikwazo hivi visiwepo. Lakini jengine aliloliongeza Mheshimiwa Rais, na mimi nakubaliana nalo, ni kwa waziri wetu wa afya kukaa na kuangalia kurahisisha mfumo wa kuingia na kuchekiwa kwenye mambo haya yaliyoingia ya COVID au corona. Watu wetu wapate huduma za haraka, kupima, kuchekiwa, ili waweze kupita na biashara ziendelee. Ndugu zangu wanahabari, Mbali na ushirikiano wa kibiashara na uwekezaji, kwenye mazungumzo yetu na Mheshimiwa Rais Kenyatta tumejadiliana pia kuhusu namna ya kutekeleza miradi yetu ya kimkakati, miradi inayohisi usafiri na usafirishaji wa watu na bidhaa, lakini pia jinsi ya kupata nishati, umeme au gesi kutoka upande mmoja kwenda upande mwingine. Tuna hiyo miradi mmoja tulishasaini mkataba leo, tunachokwenda kufanya ni kusimamia utekelezaji. Lakini pia kuna mmoja ambao unaendelea, mazungumzo yako karibu kumalizika. Nitumie lugha ya Mheshimiwa Rais, tutaweka kidole hivi karibuni, lakini pia na mwingine tuko kwenye mazungumzo kumaliza. Tumegusia pia swala la ujenzi wa bomba la kusafirishia gesi kutoka Dar es Salaam hadi Mombasa. Huu ni mradi wa muda mrefu. Tunashukuru leo tumeweka kidole na kilichobaki ni utekelezaji, tutakwenda kusimamia. Masuala mengine ni masuala ya kawaida ambayo tumezungumza, na tumejadiliana kuhusu masuala ya ushirikiano kimataifa, hususan namna kujiimarisha au kuimarisha jumuiya yetu ya Afrika Mashariki, ikiwemo kuzihimiza nchi wanachama kulipa michango yake. Hili nalo ni jambo ambalo linatusumbua kidogo ndani ya jumuiya, kwa nalo tumesema tuhimizane tulipe michango ili jumuiya iweze kusimama vizuri. Lakini pia kuna masuala mengine ya mipakani ameyazungumza, na masuala mengine madogo madogo ambayo tume zetu zitakwenda kukaa na kuyafanyia kazi. Mwisho ni kwa taarifa yenu waandishi wa habari kwamba mwaka huu ifikapo mwezi wa 12 Disemba, Tanzania tunatimiza miaka 60 ya uhuru wetu, na hivyo nimetoa mwaliko rasmi kwa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta awe mgeni rasmi katika maadhimisho yale ya miaka 60 ya uhuru wetu. Kwa hiyo hayo ndiyo ambayo mpaka sasa hivi tumezungumza na kakangu, na kweli nataka niseme mimi na ujumbe wangu tunajisi tuko nyumbani.
Asante.
Asanteni sana. Asante sana.
Asanteni sana. Kwa sasa kikao hicho kimemalizika. Kwa hivyo tutaweza kuondoka kwa hiari yetu baada ya marais kuondoka. Haya.
Kenya, na tunasema hii kwa ukweli ni safari ya kihistoria, safari ambaye yaelekeza uhusiano wetu kama nchi mbili, nchi ya Jamhuri ya Tanzania na Jamhuri ya Kenya, na uhusiano wetu ambao umeenda na umeanza kule ambapo tulikuwa tunapigania uhuru wetu, lakini pia ni safari ya kihistoria kwa sababu ni safari ya kwanza kutembelewa na rais, mama wa kwanza katika jumuiya yetu ya Afrika Mashariki, rais wa Jamhuri ya Tanzania, na kwa hivyo tunakupongeza na tunakupongeza sana kwa nafasi ambayo umepatiwa kuiongoza nchi ya Tanzania, na pia tunakupongeza kwa uchaguzi wako hivi karibuni wakati ulichagua kuwa mwenyekiti wa chama tawala, Chama cha Mapinduzi CCM. Hongera sana, hongera sana kwa safari hii yako. Inatupatia nafasi ya kurenew bilateral relations zetu, na sisi kwa upande wetu tunataka tukuhakikishie ya kwamba taifa la Kenya na serikali yangu itakuwa wa mstari wa mbele kufanya pamoja nawe na serikali yako kuhakikisha ya kwamba umoja wetu, haswa umoja wetu kama mataifa ya Afrika Mashariki, umoja wetu kama nchi jirani utaendelea kuimarika na uwe uhusiano wa kudumu na ambao utakuwa wa manufaa kwa wananchi wa nchi zote mbili. Leo hii tumepata nafasi ya kuongea pamoja na Mheshimiwa Rais mambo ambayo yanahusu nchi zetu mbili, nchi ambazo zimeunganishwa sio tu kwa kijiografia, lakini kwa culture common ambaye tuko naye. Tumeunganishwa pia kwa lugha, tumeunganishwa pia kwa heritage ya nchi zetu mbili ambazo zote ni share, pamoja na kinship ile ambayo tuko naye kati yetu, ambayo imeanza kutoka enzi za babu zetu. Sisi kama Wakenya washikilia nchi ya Tanzania sio tu kama nchi jirani, lakini kama nchi ndugu. Ndipo wakati nilimkaribisha mara ya kwanza Rais Suluhu Hassan, nilimkaribisha kwa kumwambia karibu nyumbani, kwa sababu hapo nyumbani. Tumepata nafasi ya kuongea mambo mbalimbali na tumekubaliana ya kwamba tuta-re-energize ile Joint Commission of Cooperation kati ya nchi zetu mbili, na mawaziri wetu wameambiwa wahakikisha ya kwamba wanakutana mara kwa mara, kuhakikisha ya kwamba wanaendelea kuzingatia uhusiano wetu na kuweza kutatua shida ndogo ndogo ambazo zinasumbua wananchi wetu wakati wanafanya biashara kati yao, wakati wanatembeleana kati yao, wakati wawekezaji wanakuja aidha kutoka Tanzania ama kutoka Kenya, kuhakikisha kwamba tumerahisisha mambo yote ya kibiashara, ya kiuchumi, ya kiculture ambayo itatusaidia kujenga taifa letu la Kenya na taifa letu la Tanzania kwa njia ambayo itakuwa ya manufaa kwetu sisi wote. Tunakubaliana pia ya kwamba mambo ya mawasiliano tutaendelea kuona vile tutayaimarisha, kutoka safari za ndege, safari za reli, safari za kupitia baharini na kule upande ya kanda ya ziwa, safari za barabara, na pia tukasema tutaweka haswa importance ya kuharakisha barabara ya kutoka upande ya Malindi kuelekea Lungalunga mpaka tufike Bagamoyo. Pia tukasema ya kwamba tutafurahia sana tukiona tukiweza tena kuanzisha safari zetu zile zilikuwa zipo kule Lake Victoria, wakati wananchi na mizigo ilikuwa inatembea kutoka upande wa Jinja kuja Kisumu kuelekea kule Mwanza na Bukoba, na ikarahisisha wakati huo mwenendo wa wananchi wetu na kuzalisha pia biashara kati ya wananchi wetu. Kwa hivyo tumepata nafasi ya kuongea mambo mengi ya muhimu, pia mambo ya usalama wa nchi zetu na wananchi wetu, na vile tutasaidiana kuhakikisha kwamba tuko na usalama kati yetu, kati ya wananchi wetu, haswa tukielekeza mambo ya kupigana na ugaidi katika sehemu hii. Tumekubaliana pia ya kwamba na tumeweka mikataba haswa ya mambo kuhusu kujenga pipeline ya gas kutoka Dar es Salaam mpaka Mombasa, na hiyo itarahisisha bei ya stima katika nchi yetu na itasaidia pia kuhakikisha kwamba industry zetu zinaweza kupata pia stima na energy ambayo ni environmentally friendly katika taifa letu la Kenya. Tumesema pia ya kwamba tuko na mkataba mwingine ambao tumeweka kidole wa kuhakikisha ya kwamba tumeimarisha uhusiano wetu na mambo ya culture, social integration, national heritage, ambayo kuleta wananchi wetu pamoja hata zaidi, na mambo mengine mengi kuhusu mambo ya utalii, mambo ya aviation na mambo mengi ambayo tumeweza kuongea. Yote siwezi niyasema hapa. Nataka kumalizia tu kwa kusema ya kwamba tuko na furaha tele, tuko na furaha tele siku ya leo tukikukaribisha, kwa sababu wewe tunakuona kama dada yetu, wewe tunakuona kama ndugu yetu, na nchi ya Tanzania na nchi ya Kenya ni kitu kimoja, na safari hii itaenda mbali sana kuhakikisha ya kwamba uhusiano wa nchi zetu mbili utaendelea kuimarika. Kwangu mimi kupatie ahadi yangu ya kwamba tutaendelea kufanya kazi hapa kwa hapa mpaka tutimize malengo yale waanzilishi wa mataifa letu walitupatia: uhusiano mwema, ujirani mwema, uchumi mwema kwa wananchi wa Kenya na Tanzania na kwa Afrika Mashariki. Kwa hayo machache, Rais Hassan, nasema karibu Kenya.
Asante.
Karibu nyumbani.
Asante sana.
Na natarajia hivi karibuni kuweza kutimiza mwaliko wako pia wa kutembelea nchi ya Tanzania ili tuendelee kuimarisha uhusiano huu. Kwa haya machache nasema karibu sana.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Rais. Nitoe kabisa. Katika nakushukuru Mheshimiwa Rais, Mheshimiwa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta wa Jamhuri ya Kenya, Mheshimiwa viongozi wa Tanzania na Kenya mliopo hapa, ndugu wanahabari, mabibi na mabwana. Nianze kwanza kwa kumshukuru kaka yangu Rais Kenyatta kwa kunialika kuja kutembelea nchini kwake. Na kushukuru pia kwa makaribisho mazuri tuliyopata mimi pamoja na niliofuatana nao toka tumetoka airport mpaka tunaingia Ikulu. Tumepokewa vizuri sana njiani. Mheshimiwa au ndugu wanahabari, niseme kwamba muda mfupi uliopita tumetoka kufanya mazungumzo na Mheshimiwa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta. Tumejadili mambo mengi kama alivyosema mwenyewe. Ninalotaka kuliweka msisitizo ni lile linalohusu kukuza na kuimarisha uhusiano na ushirikiano kati ya mataifa yetu mawili. Na hili ndilo jambo la msingi, kama alivyosema, Tanzania na Kenya sio tu majirani, lakini ujirani wenyewe ni wa kindugu. Alisema pia kwamba ukiangalia mipaka inayozunguka Kenya, mpaka wao na Tanzania ndio mkubwa kuliko mipaka ya nchi nyingine zote. Lakini kwenye mpaka huo wale wanaoishi mipakani wako Tanzania, wako Kenya, na wote ni ndugu. Kwa hiyo uhusiano wetu ni wa kindugu. Kama mnavyofahamu, nchi zetu mbili sio tu majirani, kama nilivyosema, ni marafiki na ndugu, na kutokana na urafiki tulionao tumewezesha kukuza ushirikiano wa kiuchumi. Kwa mfano, wakati wa mazungumzo yetu nimemwarifu kaka yangu Rais Kenyatta kuwa Kenya inashika nafasi ya 5 kwa uwekezaji ndani ya nchi ya Tanzania, ikitanguliwa na mataifa mengi kutoka nje, lakini ndani ya Jumuiya ya Afrika Mashariki Kenya ni ya kwanza, na kiulimwengu inashika nafasi ya 5, ambapo imewekeza miradi 513 yenye thamani ya dola za Kimarekani 1.7 bilioni, ambayo imetoa ajira zipatazo 51,000 za Watanzania. Aidha, zipo kampuni 30 za Tanzania ambazo zimewekeza mtaji ndani ya Kenya wenye thamani ya shilingi za Kenya bilioni 19 milioni 330 na kutoa ajira kwa watu 2600 na kama 40 hivi. Lakini nikaweka ahadi kwamba Tanzania sasa tutakuja kwa nguvu yote Kenya kuja kuwekeza ili kukuza ile ujazo wa biashara au volume of trade. Lakini mbali na uwekezaji, nchi zetu mbili pia ni wadau wakubwa wa biashara, ambapo kwenye miaka 5 iliyopita wastani wa biashara kati ya Tanzania na Kenya ni trilioni 1 shilingi za Kitanzania au dola za Kimarekani milioni 450, ambayo bado sio kubwa na tumeweka ahadi kuikuza. Hivyo basi, wakati wa mazungumzo yetu tumekubaliana kuhusu namna ya kukuza biashara na uwekezaji kati yetu. Kama mnavyofahamu, nchi zetu bado zina fursa nyingi sana, ikiwemo kwenye masuala ya kilimo, viwanda, uvuvi, ufugaji na utalii. Tuna fursa kubwa sana. Mungu ametupendelea. Sasa tunakwenda kuzitumia fursa hizi kukuza biashara kati yetu, lakini kati yetu na mataifa ya nje. Lakini kwa lengo la kukuza biashara pia na uwekezaji kati yetu, tumekubaliana kuendelea kushughulikia baadhi ya changamoto, hususan vikwazo visivyo vya kodi ambavyo vinatokea katika mipaka yetu. Tumekubaliana kwamba hivyo sasa vikaondoke, na kwa pamoja tumeitaka tume yetu ya ushirikiano baina ya Kenya na Tanzania iwe inakaa na kutoa suluhu ya vikwazo vinavyojitokeza sasa hivi na halafu, ili vikwazo hivi visiwepo. Lakini jengine aliloliongeza Mheshimiwa Rais, na mimi nakubaliana nalo, ni kwa waziri wetu wa afya kukaa na kuangalia kurahisisha mfumo wa kuingia na kuchekiwa kwenye mambo haya yaliyoingia ya COVID au corona. Watu wetu wapate huduma za haraka, kupima, kuchekiwa, ili waweze kupita na biashara ziendelee. Ndugu zangu wanahabari, mbali na ushirikiano wa kibiashara na uwekezaji kwenye mazungumzo yetu na Mheshimiwa Rais Kenyatta, tumejadiliana pia kuhusu namna ya kutekeleza miradi yetu ya kimkakati, miradi inayohisi usafiri na usafirishaji wa watu na bidhaa, lakini pia jinsi ya kupata nishati, umeme au gesi kutoka upande mmoja kwenda upande mwingine. Tuna hiyo miradi mmoja tulishasaini mkataba leo, tunachokwenda kufanya ni kusimamia utekelezaji. Lakini pia kuna mmoja ambao unaendelea, mazungumzo yako karibu kumalizika. Nitumie lugha ya Mheshimiwa Rais, tutaweka kidole hivi karibuni, lakini pia na mwingine tuko kwenye mazungumzo kumaliza. Tumegusia pia swala la ujenzi wa bomba la kusafirishia gesi kutoka Dar es Salaam hadi Mombasa. Huu ni mradi wa muda mrefu. Tunashukuru leo tumeweka kidole na kilichobaki ni utekelezaji, tutakwenda kusimamia. Masuala mengine ni masuala ya kawaida ambayo tumezungumza na tumejadiliana kuhusu masuala ya ushirikiano kimataifa, hususan namna ya kujiimarisha au kuimarisha jumuiya yetu ya Afrika Mashariki, ikiwemo kuzihimiza nchi wanachama kulipa michango yake. Hili nalo ni jambo ambalo linatusumbua kidogo ndani ya jumuiya, kwa nalo tumesema tuhimizane tulipe michango ili jumuiya iweze kusimama vizuri. Lakini pia kuna masuala mengine ya mipakani ameyazungumza, na masuala mengine madogo madogo ambayo tume zetu zitakwenda kukaa na kuyafanyia kazi. Mwisho ni kwa taarifa yenu waandishi wa habari kwamba mwaka huu ifikapo mwezi wa 12 Disemba, Tanzania tunatimiza miaka 60 ya uhuru wetu. Na hivyo nimetoa mwaliko rasmi kwa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta awe mgeni rasmi katika maadhimisho yale ya miaka 60 ya uhuru wetu. Kwa hiyo hayo ndiyo ambayo mpaka sasa hivi tumezungumza na kakangu, na kweli nataka niseme mimi na ujumbe wangu tunajisi tuko nyumbani.
Asante.
Asanteni sana. Asante sana.
Asanteni sana. Kwa sasa kikao hicho kimemalizika. Kwa hivyo tutaweza kuondoka kwa hiari yetu baada ya marais kuondoka. Haya.
Kenya, kwa ziara yako ya kwanza ya kirasmi katika taifa letu la Kenya, na tunasema hii kwa ukweli ni safari ya kihistoria, safari ambaye yaelekeza uhusiano wetu kama nchi mbili, nchi ya Jamhuri ya Tanzania, Jamhuri ya Kenya, na uhusiano wetu ambao umeenda na umeanza kule ambapo tulikuwa tunapigania uhuru wetu. Lakini pia ni safari ya kihistoria kwa sababu ni safari ya kwanza kutembelewa na rais, mama wa kwanza katika jumuiya yetu ya Afrika Mashariki, rais wa Jamhuri ya Tanzania. Na kwa hivyo tunakupongeza na tunakupongeza sana kwa nafasi ambayo umepatiwa kuiongoza nchi ya Tanzania, na pia tunakupongeza kwa uchaguzi wako hivi karibuni wakati ulichagua kuwa mwenyekiti wa chama tawala, Chama cha Mapinduzi CCM. Hongera sana, hongera sana. Safari hii yako inatupatia nafasi ya kurenew bilateral relations zetu, na sisi kwa upande wetu tunataka tukuhakikishie ya kwamba taifa la Kenya na serikali yangu itakuwa wa mstari wa mbele kufanya pamoja nawe na serikali yako kuhakikisha ya kwamba umoja wetu, haswa umoja wetu kama mataifa ya Afrika Mashariki, umoja wetu kama nchi jirani utaendelea kuimarika na ule uhusiano wa kudumu na ambao utakuwa wa manufaa kwa wananchi wa nchi zote mbili. Leo hii tumepata nafasi ya kuongea pamoja na Mheshimiwa Rais mambo ambayo yanahusu nchi zetu mbili, nchi ambazo zimeunganishwa sio tu kwa kijiografia, lakini kwa culture common ambaye tuko naye. Tumeunganishwa pia kwa lugha, tumeunganishwa pia kwa heritage ya nchi zetu ambazo zote ni share, pamoja na kinship ile ambayo tuko naye kati yetu ambayo imeanza kutoka enzi za babu zetu. Sisi kama Wakenya tunashikilia nchi ya Tanzania sio tu kama nchi jirani, lakini kama nchi ndugu. Ndipo wakati nilimkaribisha mara ya kwanza Rais Suluhu Hassan, nilimkaribisha kwa kumwambia karibu nyumbani, kwa sababu hapo nyumbani. Tupata nafasi ya kuongea mambo mbalimbali, tukakubaliana ya kwamba tuta re-energize ile Joint Commission of Cooperation kati ya nchi zetu mbili, na mawaziri wetu wameambiwa wahakikishe ya kwamba wanakutana mara kwa mara, kuhakikisha ya kwamba wanaendelea kuzingatia uhusiano wetu na kuweza kutatua shida ndogo ndogo ambazo inasumbua wananchi wetu wakati wanafanya biashara kati yao, wakati wanatembeleana kati yao, wakati wawekezaji wanakuja aidha kutoka Tanzania ama kutoka Kenya, kuhakikisha kwamba tumerahisisha mambo yote ya kibiashara, ya kiuchumi, ya kiculture ambayo inatusaidia kujenga taifa letu la Kenya na taifa letu la Tanzania kwa njia ambayo itakuwa ya manufaa kwetu sisi wote. Tunakubaliana pia ya kwamba mambo ya mawasiliano tutaendelea kuona vile tutayaimarisha, kutoka safari za ndege, safari za reli, safari za kupitia baharini na kule upande ya kanda ya ziwa, safari za barabara, na pia tukasema tutaweka haswa importance ya kuharakisha barabara ya kutoka upande ya Malindi kuelekea Lungalunga mpaka tufike Bagamoyo. Pia tukasema ya kwamba tutafurahia sana tukiona tukiweza tena kuanzisha safari zetu zile zilikuwa zipo kule Lake Victoria, wakati wananchi na mizigo ilikuwa inatembea kutoka upande ya Jinja kuja Kisumu kuelekea kule Mwanza na Bukoba, na ikarahisisha wakati huo mwenendo wa wananchi wetu na kuzalisha pia biashara kati ya wananchi wetu. Kwa hivyo tumepata nafasi ya kuongea mambo mengi ya muhimu, pia mambo ya usalama wa nchi zetu na wananchi wetu, na vile tutasaidiana kuhakikisha kwamba tuko na usalama kati yetu, kati ya wananchi wetu, haswa tukielekeza mambo ya kupigana na ugaidi katika sehemu hii. Tumekubaliana pia ya kwamba tumeweka mikataba haswa ya mambo kuhusu kujenga pipeline ya gas kutoka Dar es Salaam mpaka Mombasa, na hiyo itarahisisha bei ya stima katika nchi yetu na itasaidia pia kuhakikisha kwamba industry zetu zinaweza kupata pia stima na energy ambayo ni environmentally friendly katika taifa letu la Kenya. Tumesema pia ya kwamba tuko na mkataba mwingine ambao tunaweka kidole wa kuhakikisha ya kwamba tumeimarisha uhusiano wetu kwa mambo ya culture, social integration, national heritage, ambayo inaleta wananchi wetu pamoja hata zaidi, na mambo mengine mengi kuhusu mambo ya utalii, mambo ya aviation na mambo mengi ambayo tunaweza kuongea. Yote siwezi niyaseme hapa. Nataka kumalizia tu kwa kusema ya kwamba tuko na furaha tele, tuko na furaha tele siku ya leo tukikukaribisha, kwa sababu wewe tunakuona kama dada yetu, wewe tunakuona kama ndugu yetu, na nchi ya Tanzania na nchi ya Kenya ni kitu kimoja, na safari hii itaenda mbali sana kuhakikisha ya kwamba uhusiano wa nchi zetu mbili utaendelea kuimarika. Kwangu mimi, tupatie ahadi yangu ya kwamba tutaendelea kufanya kazi hapa kwa hapa mpaka tutimize malengo yale waanzilishi wa mataifa letu walitupatia: uhusiano mwema, ujirani mwema, uchumi mwema kwa wananchi wa Kenya na Tanzania na kwa Afrika Mashariki. Kwa hayo machache, Rais Hassan, nasema karibu Kenya.
Asante.
Karibu nyumbani.
Asante sana.
Na natarajia hivi karibuni kuweza kutimiza mwaliko wako pia wa kutembelea nchi ya Tanzania ndio tuendelee kuimarisha uhusiano huu. Kwa hayo machache nasema karibu sana.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Rais. Nitoe kabisa. Katika. Nakushukuru Mheshimiwa Rais. Mheshimiwa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta wa Jamhuri ya Kenya, Waheshimiwa viongozi wa Tanzania na Kenya mliopo hapa, ndugu wanahabari, mabibi na mabwana, nianze kwanza kwa kumshukuru kaka yangu Rais Kenyatta kwa kunialika kuja kutembelea nchini kwake. Na kushukuru pia kwa makaribisho mazuri tuliyopata mimi pamoja na niliofuatana nao toka tumetoka airport mpaka tunaingia Ikulu. Tumepokewa vizuri sana njiani. Mheshimiwa au ndugu wanahabari, niseme kwamba muda mfupi uliopita tumetoka kufanya mazungumzo na Mheshimiwa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta. Tumejadili mambo mengi kama alivyosema mwenyewe. Ninalotaka kuliweka msisitizo ni lile linalohusu kukuza na kuimarisha uhusiano na ushirikiano kati ya mataifa yetu mawili. Na hili ndilo jambo la msingi kama alivyosema. Tanzania na Kenya sio tu majirani, lakini ujirani wenyewe ni wa kindugu. Alisema pia kwamba ukiangalia mipaka inayozunguka Kenya, mpaka wao na Tanzania ndio mkubwa kuliko mipaka ya nchi nyingine zote. Lakini kwenye mpaka huo wale wanaoishi mipakani wako Tanzania, wako Kenya, na wote ni ndugu. Kwa hiyo uhusiano wetu ni wa kindugu. Kama mnavyofahamu, nchi zetu mbili sio tu majirani, kama nilivyosema, ni marafiki na ndugu, na kutokana na urafiki tulionao tumewezesha kukuza ushirikiano wa kiuchumi. Kwa mfano, wakati wa mazungumzo yetu nimemwarifu kaka yangu Rais Kenyatta kuwa Kenya inashika nafasi ya 5 kwa uwekezaji ndani ya nchi ya Tanzania, ikitanguliwa na mataifa mengi kutoka nje, lakini ndani ya Jumuiya ya Afrika Mashariki Kenya ni ya kwanza na kiulimwengu inashika nafasi ya 5, ambapo imewekeza miradi 513 yenye thamani ya dola za Kimarekani 1.7 bilioni, ambayo imetoa ajira zipatazo 51,000 za Watanzania. Aidha, zipo kampuni 30 za Tanzania ambazo zimewekeza mtaji ndani ya Kenya wenye thamani ya shilingi za Kenya bilioni 19,330,000 na kutoa ajira kwa watu 2,600 na kama 40 hivi. Lakini nikaweka ahadi kwamba Tanzania sasa tutakuja kwa nguvu yote Kenya kuja kuwekeza ili kukuza ile ujazo wa biashara au volume of trade. Lakini mbali na uwekezaji, nchi zetu mbili pia ni wadau wakubwa wa biashara, ambapo kwenye miaka 5 iliyopita wastani wa biashara kati ya Tanzania na Kenya ni trilioni 1 shilingi za Kitanzania au dola za Kimarekani milioni 450, ambayo bado sio kubwa na tumeweka ahadi kuikuza. Hivyo basi, wakati mazungumzo yetu tumekubaliana kuhusu namna ya kukuza biashara na uwekezaji kati yetu. Kama mnavyofahamu, nchi zetu bado zina fursa nyingi sana, ikiwemo kwenye masuala ya kilimo, viwanda, uvuvi, ufugaji na utalii. Tuna fursa kubwa sana. Mungu ametupendelea. Sasa tunakwenda kuzitumia fursa hizi kukuza biashara kati yetu, lakini kati yetu na mataifa ya nje. Lakini kwa lengo la kukuza biashara pia na uwekezaji kati yetu, tumekubaliana kuendelea kushughulikia baadhi ya changamoto, hususan vikwazo visivyo vya kodi ambavyo vinatokea katika mipaka yetu. Tumekubaliana kwamba hivyo sasa vikaondoke, na kwa pamoja tumeitaka tume yetu ya ushirikiano baina ya Kenya na Tanzania iwe inakaa na kutoa suluhu ya vikwazo vinavyojitokeza sasa hivi na halafu, ili vikwazo hivi visiwepo. Lakini jengine aliloliongeza Mheshimiwa Rais, na mimi nakubaliana nalo, ni kwa waziri wetu wa afya kukaa na kurahisisha mfumo wa kuingia na kuchekiwa kwenye mambo haya yaliyoingia ya COVID au corona. Watu wetu wapate huduma za haraka, kupima, kuchekiwa, ili waweze kupita na biashara ziendelee. Ndugu zangu wanahabari, mbali na ushirikiano wa kibiashara na uwekezaji kwenye mazungumzo yetu na Mheshimiwa Rais Kenyatta, tumejadiliana pia kuhusu namna ya kutekeleza miradi yetu ya kimkakati, miradi inayohisi usafiri na usafirishaji wa watu na bidhaa, lakini pia jinsi ya kupata nishati, umeme au gesi kutoka upande mmoja kwenda upande mwingine. Tuna hiyo miradi mmoja tulishasaini mkataba leo. Tunachokwenda kufanya ni kusimamia utekelezaji. Lakini pia kuna mmoja ambao unaendelea, mazungumzo yako karibu kumalizika. Nitumie lugha ya Mheshimiwa Rais, tutaweka kidole hivi karibuni, lakini pia na mwingine tuko kwenye mazungumzo kuumaliza. Tumegusia pia swala la ujenzi wa bomba la kusafirishia gesi kutoka Dar es Salaam hadi Mombasa. Huu ni mradi wa muda mrefu. Tunashukuru leo tumeweka kidole na kilichobaki ni utekelezaji, tutakwenda kusimamia. Masuala mengine ni masuala ya kawaida ambayo tumezungumza, na tumejadiliana kuhusu masuala ya ushirikiano kimataifa, hususan namna kujimarisha au kuimarisha jumuiya yetu ya Afrika Mashariki, ikiwemo kuzihimiza nchi wanachama kulipa michango yake. Hili nalo ni jambo ambalo linatusumbua kidogo ndani ya jumuiya. Kwa hiyo nalo tumesema tuhimizane, tulipe michango ili jumuiya iweze kusimama vizuri. Lakini pia kuna masuala mengine ya mipakani ameyazungumza, na masuala mengine madogo madogo ambayo tume zetu zitakwenda kukaa na kuyafanyia kazi. Mwisho ni kwa taarifa yenu waandishi wa habari kwamba mwaka huu ifikapo mwezi wa 12 Disemba, Tanzania tunatimiza miaka 60 ya uhuru wetu. Na hivyo nimetoa mwaliko rasmi kwa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta awe mgeni rasmi katika maadhimisho yale ya miaka 60 ya uhuru wetu. Kwa hiyo hayo ndiyo ambayo mpaka sasa hivi tumezungumza na kakangu, na kweli nataka niseme mimi na ujumbe wangu tunajisi tuko nyumbani.
Asante.
Asanteni sana. Asante sana.